What's up, guys? How is everybody doing? Welcome back to Darth Matu's Holocron. I'm not sure if anybody noticed, but we hit 100 subscribers this week. And I know that's a modest landmark, but it's one I thought that was worth mentioning nonetheless. It's been fun making videos for you guys, and I'm glad that you're enjoying it. I want to thank all of you guys so much for your support. I really appreciate you giving me your time and your attention. I really do. The next landmark that I am going to be keeping an eye on is 1,000 subs. So if you do enjoy the channel, please hit the like button. It helps out a lot. Please share, please subscribe, and thank you all very much for your dedication so far. It will not ever be forgotten. Now, to celebrate this occasion, I figured that this week I would do another Darth Matu Speaks. And this time I wanted to talk about a specific aspect of storytelling. One of the most important aspects, and yet it's one of the ones that gets the least talked about in the modern arena of narrative storytelling. I want to talk about archetypes and the Monomyth. Now, this conversation is going to get kind of academic, so if that doesn't interest you, I completely understand. But if you're like me, and you love the nitty-gritty of narrative storytelling, then I hope that you find this helpful in your own craft. It should be noted that none of what I am about to discuss is my own work. I am summarizing the work of others in a format that I really hope that you find enjoyable. Primarily the work of Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell. To start, we're going to talk about Carl Jung. Carl Jung, he was a psychoanalyst at the turn of the 20th century, and he is most well known for his statements on the collective unconscious. To break it down very simply, Jung stated that there were patterns to human behavior which repeated regardless of culture or geography. There are some things about being human that are intrinsic, that no one really needs to be taught, that we can all empathize and understand. And Carl Jung is the first one who came up with the idea of archetypes based on these principles. Archetypes are tied to the collective unconscious, in that they represent the range of basic human motivations. Jung defined 12 of them, and we're not going to go into too much detail here. If you guys are interested, I can do a video where we get into the specific archetypes later on, but for now, it's mainly important just to understand that Jung believed that these archetypes were intrinsic to human nature regardless of where the human being came from, that each of us had a personality that was dominated by one of the 12 archetypes. Joseph Campbell was a contemporary of and a fan of Carl Jung. He took Jung's ideas and applied them to storytelling. Campbell's reasoning was simple. Writers, storytellers of all kinds, they draw upon their own pool of life experience in order to craft narrative. If there are patterns to human behavior, then that also means that there are patterns to human experience. Which means, just like human personality can be developed into archetypes, there are several fundamental methods of storytelling which repeat, regardless of culture or geographic context. Campbell noticed that all cultures had stories which seemed to revolve around the same basic structure. And he called this structure the Monomyth. It's better known as the hero's journey. Now, Campbell noticed that, just like in life, characters within this journey seem to fit into several archetypes, repeating patterns that help to underlie the fundamental themes of the narrative, the fundamental nature of human experience reflecting itself in the way that we tell our stories. Where Jung identified 12 fundamental archetypes, Campbell identified 8 for narratives. These are the hero, the mentor, the ally, the herald, the trickster, the shapeshifter, the guardian, and the shadow. Now, I am going to do a detailed video later on for these archetypes, but for now, we should understand that these archetypes revolve around the hero. The hero is the protagonist, almost always, and they are usually the ones that we follow through the story. The Monomyth itself progresses through several key phases, and each one puts the hero through another step in the narrative, introducing new archetypes that push the hero to grow. The hero always starts off in a state of status quo. Things are normal for them. they themselves are just an ordinary Joe. Maybe they're a farm boy on some backwater desert planet, or maybe they're a hobbit, sitting comfortable at home, enjoying a pipe filled with your favorite strain of leaf. Whatever the hero finds themselves doing, they are certainly not yet a hero. The adventure itself begins with what is called the call to adventure. The call to adventure is the catalyst which pushes our hero out into the world. Oftentimes it is dramatic, like the death of an aunt or uncle, but other times it is far more subtle, perhaps a phone call or a letter. In some stories, the hero is literally snatched up and dropped into the adventure, like in the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever. But whatever happens, the hero finds their life disrupted. They are forced out of comfort and pushed into the world. The next part of the Monomyth seems contradictory at first, but it is extremely important to the process, and it is the refusal of the call. Leaving comfort behind is, well, uncomfortable, and in the refusal of the call, the hero resists the pull out into the world. Luke Skywalker tells Ben that he doesn't know he needs to help with the harvest, when earlier that same day, he was complaining about having to stay behind to help. Frodo makes it to Rivendell, and once there, he fully expects to be able to go home, that his journey is finished. And it is usually in this crucial moment that the hero meets the mentor. Meeting the mentor is the name of the next stage. It's important to note that the mentor might be introduced before this phase. Gandalf, for example, is in The Lord of the Rings from the very beginning. But he is not always there. In fact, for the first half of the book, he is completely absent, and Frodo doesn't meet back up with him again until Rivendell. It's there that Gandalf's presence helps him to find the inner strength that he needs to accept the burden of the ring. The mentor helps the hero on their journey, oftentimes teaching them, giving them something to look up to, or something to aim for, or to latch onto when it comes to their own development. The next stage is crossing the threshold. Here, the hero, having been guided by the mentor, is finally fully ready to embrace their call to adventure and meet it head on. He might go willingly, or he might be forced. In Star Wars, this moment is the death of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. Luke has met Ben, and he has refused Ben's offer to learn the ways of the Force. It's worth noting that meeting the mentor came before refusal of the call here. Then Luke heads home, and there he finds his relatives dead. It's this tragedy that finally pushes him to accept Ben's offer, and he's finally ready to head out into the galaxy to learn the ways of the Force and to bring justice to his slain family. The next part of the Monomyth is called Tests, Allies, and Enemies. Now, this is just a fancy way of saying exposition. This is the phase where the hero is going to be tested. They will make friends, or earn allies, or they will come to know their enemies. In Star Wars, everything that happens between when Luke leaves Tatooine and when he destroys the Death Star would fit into this phase. He has several independent adventures, running from Imperial cruisers, training as a Jedi, rescuing princesses. Luke is tested during all of these things, and he grows through each of them, meeting his enemy until finally he passes his ultimate test, destroying the Death Star. The hero by the end of this phase will be well developed. They will have met most of the other archetypes, and it's kind of like a new status quo for the hero. Much like the last time he was in this state, it must be shattered for the story to continue. Now, the next phase is known as the approach to the Innermost cave. This phase represents some sort of danger or a conflict that the hero has not had to face until that point. In Star Wars, this point comes on Dagobah, when Luke is with Yoda. Indeed, in this movie, it takes the form of an actual cave, a cave filled with dark side energy that Luke has to enter. Inside, he faces Vader, defeating him only to discover that it is his own face within the helmet. Now, Luke realizes that he has to face the possibility of evil within himself. that he could be every bit as bad as the enemy that he fights. This is an important phase, because during this phase, the hero again has to face self-doubt. This inner crisis helps to push their growth as the story continues. The next phase is known as the ordeal, but my personal favorite name for it is the descent to the Underworld. The descent into the Underworld is a great hardship or obstacle that the hero has to overcome. Most oftentimes, it takes the form of some kind of defeat. In Star Wars, Luke gets defeated by Vader in Empire Strikes Back, and Han is kidnapped. In Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship shatters at the end of the first book, leaving Frodo and Sam to carry on alone, while the others do their best with what they have. The descent to the Underworld is important, perhaps one of the most important parts of the hero's journey. The hero must face and overcome defeat. This is absolutely vital to the following phases. Without facing defeat, everything that comes next is hollow and meaningless. They need to earn victory. We, as the reader or the viewer, need to know that the hero has grown, that it hasn't just been handed to them. This is the second greatest personal challenge that the hero will ever face. The next part of the Monomyth is known as seizing the sword, and this comes after the hero has had to face defeat. The act of being defeated leaves the hero transformed, and as a result, they are rewarded. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, after all. Perhaps they become closer to their allies, or perhaps they receive a new power. Whatever happens, the hero obtains, through defeat, the tools that he needs to overcome what used to be too much for them. Because they have experienced defeat, they have been able to learn how to overcome that. And finally, the narrative begins to close in on the closing action. The 10th phase is known as the road back. In this phase, the hero recognizes that they are on the final stretch. They think of home and of getting there, but this time they fully expect and are prepared for danger. The hero is ready to face whatever stands between them and their goals, and to carry on through to the other side, to come home again after everything that they have been through. Now, this does not mean that victory is certain. It simply means that the hero is finally ready to face their greatest challenge, which leads directly into the next phase, which is the final climax. Now, it's here that the hero has a final and direct confrontation with death. They face their fears, whatever it was that has been hounding them throughout the narrative, and they finally defeat it for good. Their experience being defeated themselves has given them the inner strength that they need to finally overcome everything that has held them back. Luke defeats Darth Vader and redeems him. Frodo destroys the ring. This phase forces the hero to pull out everything that they have gained over the course of the narrative, and to truly prove that they have grown and changed by overcoming the one thing that has been unassailable to them. The hero defeats all that holds them back, and in so doing, they justify the journey that they've been through. They solidify the changes that have taken place within themselves. This concept is perfectly exemplified when Luke tosses away his lightsaber, looks the Emperor in the eye, and says, "I am a Jedi, like my father before me." His transformation has become complete, and he knows it. This phase oftentimes is considered the point of payoff. This is where the reader or viewer gets to see all of the investment that they have given to a character come to fruition as they finally achieve their goals. Now, finally, the narrative begins to come to an end. This phase is known as the return home. The hero goes back to their old life, but they are no longer the same. They've changed, learned, grown, and in returning home, they bring these new perspectives back to the people they left behind. The hero receives a final reward for their journey, whether that be a chance to rest and live out their lives in peace, or maybe it's metal, or a large chest of gold. Maybe it's the opportunity to sail west into the undying lands with the elves. This is where the full resolution comes. We have seen the hero journey, change, and grow, and now we see them return home and try to integrate back into their lives. Because they have changed, though, they are now forever apart from the things that they used to hold dear. This is incredibly important, as it reflects how, as we grow, if we grow successfully, we oftentimes end up outgrowing the things that defined us in the past. It's really quite an important revelation. And that is the Monomyth in a nutshell. It is important, again, because this method of storytelling repeats itself across all of human experience. This is the method of storytelling that is perhaps the most fundamental to who we are. Now, I didn't go that crazy into detail here. This video is coming up on 20 minutes already, and I wanted to avoid giving an outright lecture. But I've discussed in previous videos how stories can allow us to know ourselves. So, knowing the way we construct stories, even just the very basics like this, by understanding the Monomyth, we can learn how to craft good stories of our own. And through so doing, we can learn more about who we are. By understanding the hero's journey, we can understand not only how to explore ourselves, but how to most efficiently transmit our discoveries to others. Storytelling is truly an art. It is the art that perhaps all other art forms spring from. Even sculptures are trying to tell us something. I really do think that by exploring the art of storytelling, by learning how to tell well-structured, well-thought-out narratives, we can become wiser as people. We can begin to understand more about the human experience, and this can only help us to empathize more with the world around us. It cannot hurt to empathize more, to see ourselves within the people that we live next to. I think a lot of people would agree that perhaps one of the most important things that you can do in your life is to know yourself. To know yourself so that you can better know others. And by understanding the art of storytelling, we take a step closer to understanding who we truly are as individuals. Anyway, this video is starting to get pretty long, so I'm not gonna keep you guys any longer. I hope you enjoyed this extremely brief and extremely basic explanation of the Monomyth. I hope it helps you learn how to forge your own stories, or at the very least, point you in the right direction of people who can help you on Google. By now, you all know how important stories are to me, and I can only offer my utmost in encouragement to all you folks out there who feel the need to write or to craft narratives. You should tell your stories. Tell every story that comes into your mind, and keep the lessons of the Monomyth close to your heart. If you do that, you can only improve. Alright guys, that's enough from me. Again, thank you all very much for getting the channel to 100 subscribers. You all are really amazing. You really, really are. And I appreciate every single one of you. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It helps out with the algorithm a ton. Please subscribe. And please make sure you're taking care of yourselves out there, alright? If you guys want to discuss the Monomyth more in detail, then feel free to leave a comment down below. And until next time, everyone, may the Force break your chains.